should I even be the type of person to buy a house? This is a fantastic question, one that I would not jump over quickly. I do meet people sometimes that I think there's just not enough money saved, or we just don't have the wherewithal in our life to take care of a property. So when you see a house that's really run down, I think that that's an example of somebody that's at the point in their life, whether they got there or they're getting there, there's something going on where they cannot keep up to the maintenance of a house. And that is a thing. Like, this is an important detail, because we don't make money when we let our house degrade over time. We have the ability financially and physically or whatnot to find people or to be able to do it ourselves and keep it up. So that's a really important point. I've kind of jumped ahead of myself here a little bit, but before I forget, if you would prefer just to read this guide to yourself, below there is a link that you can download this guide if you'd prefer to jump to that rather than hear the video portion. If you prefer to hear me talk about it, I hope you'll continue until the end. And then just a real quick disclaimer, my job is not to convince you to buy a house. I know that you're thinking, man, you're a realtor, you're biased. Like, how could this be a non-biased opinion? However, I don't think homeownership is for everybody. It might not be for you. And I want to dig into some questions that you should consider before you decide to start shopping for a house or even getting pre-approved for a loan. So what you are seeing on my screen is the guide. And these first 5 questions, I think, if there's nothing else you grab from the video, we're going to dig into it right here, right away. So the first question is, can you see yourself living somewhere for a certain amount of time? Now, a catch people have is they'll start shopping for their forever home. I don't think that that's a great decision. I think you should look for a house that's going to work for you for the next 5 to 10 years. Now, I will tell people on the shortest end of the spectrum, when you buy a house, you have to see yourself living there for at least 2 years. Ideally more like 5, and then even a little bit longer. And the reason for that is it's expensive to purchase a house, and it's also expensive to sell a house. Even if you do these things completely on your own, there's fees involved in this versus renting. So if you're in a very unstable part of your life, now I don't mean that like in a chaotic, like life is hard sort of way. I mean, like, do you think you're going to be getting some sort of promotion or like a lot of change in your job in the near future that might want to give you pause? Are you about to go back to schooling or college, like, where you could end up moving across the state or country for that education? That's probably not a good time in your life to be buying a house. Or, maybe something, romantic, or, you want to partner up with somebody, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be buying a house with a sister or a family member. And then, again, is there stability in this point in my life? Because if there's nothing else, again, that you hear today, there needs to be some stability, because to turn around and sell the house immediately may be a huge financial regret, to just be like really blunt about it. So when we're in a more stable part of our life, then homeownership could become something we consider versus renting. For the second thing, this is so important. Are we financially in a good place for this? There are some out-of-pocket expenses that most first-time home buyers are not aware of. Those are more minimal. However, I have had people that do not have enough saved up for earnest money or even purchasing an inspection. If you're hearing yourself in that, like maybe again, it's just not quite the right time until we have a little bit more money saved up. So there's closing costs, there's down payment, there's some other fees, and the big one, of course, is maintaining a house, which is a little bit more below, but that's a really, really huge one. So are we financially prepared just on the giddy up for the purchase? Now, of course, question 3 and 4, most of you could figure out were coming without me pointing out, do you prefer an environment where you can customize it? And then the 4th question, do you want to start building equity? That's a very important point. Like, a lot of times when we sell a property, we're making money. However, that's never guaranteed either. Like, just to play both sides. Since 2012, We've only seen houses rise in value in the Twin Cities market. However, I can't guarantee that in the long run, and I don't think that should spook you or concern you, but we can never assume real estate is absolutely going to be an investment in a wealth builder. We do the best we can with that conversation, and I think that's a little bit deeper than what I wanted to go into today. So the fifth thing, and this is so important, and it's been coming up so much lately with folks I'm meeting, where we just hardly have enough money to buy the house. So what are we going to do when the furnace goes out next winter, or a window breaks, or something where home insurance isn't necessarily going to cover this type of thing? Are you comfortable financially with anything that could be in the pipeline in terms of a building? Buildings are unpredictable. If you've never had one, you can only imagine. I mean, you can live somewhere for years and years and not have any repair items. However, you can also move in the next day and have 3 things you have to take care of. So there needs to be a comfortability there. And on that note, if we're in an HOA neighborhood like a condo or a townhouse, we're probably going to predict that our HOA fees only going to go up over time, and same with property taxes. Yes, these things can go back and become a little less expensive, but if we're going to guess, we should assume these things only get more expensive, not less expensive. So as you're thinking through the answers to these questions for yourself, if you're more of a yes on the questions, then yes, probably homeownership should be considered seriously. If you're more of a no, then it's perfectly fine to stick with renting. Again, there's no wrong choices. There's definitely some benefits to both of these methodologies. It just depends on your personality and your financial situation at this moment in time. And so the next page is about the pros and cons, and I don't want to be overly repetitive because we've hit on a lot of these things, but renting generally, we don't have as many upfront costs, so that might be a better fit for you at certain points in your life. Buying, there certainly will be. There's really no way around that. Monthly costs, right, with a rental, you have rent and utilities and then whatever else is going on in your life, versus a house. You've got a mortgage, you've got to pay taxes, and you have utilities and insurance. By the way, I do think you should have renter's insurance too, but there is a significant price difference between rental insurance and home insurance. Again, these things are possible depending on where we're at and maybe like somebody we're partnering with to purchase this house. Obviously, with renting, we're not gaining equity, and with a house, we are probably building equity over time. I definitely am a huge proponent of renting if you're not in a very stable point in your life, meaning you need that opportunity to relocate easily. I would not suggest bothering with buying a house. It's hard to move faster. And I'm not trying to be negative, but if you have a property, you can never assume it's always going to be easy to sell. While that's been true for over a decade, that it's relatively easy to sell most properties in the Twin Cities, I can never guarantee you that tomorrow something isn't going to happen and then you're going to be stuck with it for a while. However, I will make the argument that you could probably make it a rental if you are having trouble selling it a lot easier, though you may not like that. And then, of course, maintenance, landlord takes care of most things. And when you're a homeowner, you take care of things. However, one more comment on that we haven't touched on yet is there's a certain person that thinks they need to buy new construction because they are so fearful of repairs or not knowing who to call. Guys, if you can find someone to cut your hair, if you can find somewhere to get dinner tonight, you can find somebody to help you fix a leak under a sink. You can find somebody to help you with your roof. If you don't know the answer to questions, I just became aware of my Minnesota accent there. You can ask a friend and family who the right person is to call. You do not have to become a DIY expert to be a homeowner. I would love to tell you, I have a lot of skills. I think that's not what it is. I think I just know who to call, or I can figure out who to call if I don't inherently know the answers. So keep that in mind. So moving forward, just to debunk a few myths, the very first one, the one that comes up the most, is people a lot of times think they need a lot more money saved than they actually do. They're 20% down. I kind of know where that came from. It's from, almost over 100 years ago. But there are programs that are as low as actually 1% down, depending on the lender. Now, with that said, if you don't understand this basic concept, the more we put down, we generally have a lower monthly mortgage payment. So you may be attracted to a low down payment program. However, it doesn't mean you're going to like that actual payment monthly. And we care about your affordability more than your down payment, more than your interest rate, more than anything. What is this going to cost you per month? Is that affordable or not? Yes, there is down payment assistance programs out there for different lenders have different assistance programs. Different lenders have the ability to lock into these programs and help you with them. If you do not know who to call, then let me know. We'll find you somebody local and reliable with amazing customer service skills that can answer your questions. If you want down payment assistance, I would recommend staying away from the national companies. I'm not going to name names today, but they generally can't tie in, or they don't tie into like our Minneapolis programs, county programs. They aren't aware, they're not signed up for it, they're not going to talk to you about it, and they're going to poo-poo them because they don't want to lose your business. And I always find that very concerning. So please make sure you're working with the right people, get multiple opinions. Don't just go necessarily with the first lender you talk to. Get recommendations, get referrals. Anyway, is renting always cheaper than owning a house? At this moment in time, I do think it is. And one misperception I hear from people is that, I don't even know, that wasn't even the right word. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people out there that, let's say they pay $1,200 a month in rent. They want to get $1,200 a month in a house. Again, that is possible if you're doing a sizable down payment. But if you tell me I have no money to put down and I want a low mortgage amount, or I want to go less than what I'm renting, that there's a lot of things not lining up in that sentence. And so that's going to be a hard reality hit when you find out that. You probably want to prepare yourself that owning a house is going to be more expensive in various regards. And one of those is you're probably going to pay more for a similar type of property with a mortgage at this moment in time than the other way around. So if you need the prices to be lower, you might want to lean into renting, because again, all the expenses that come with buying a house, and then the long term, it's probably going to be a little less expensive to own a rental, as long as you understand it's not your property, somebody else is building equity, et cetera, et cetera. So again, which one is right for you? Well, you certainly can talk to a loan officer and figure out, what your payments and the fees are going to be before you decide which one is going to be better for you. I don't think cheaper is better, but I do think there's times in our life where it's not a choice. Side note, my fan is running very hard on my computer, and I apologize for the background noise. We are going to have to ignore it together. All right, here's a big one. Should I wait for the home prices to drop before I even consider buying a house? What an important topic. There's so much to say about this, and I do not want to make this video about this topic in particular. In the Twin Cities, since again 2012, home prices have been generally going up, okay? But what you should know, it's very, very hard to time, but what I wouldn't do is, if my lease is running up in the spring, I wouldn't sign another 12-year month lease and then do this again in the spring, because spring, which we define generally from around February to May, is the most expensive time to buy a house, because you have the most amount of people competing for the same properties. There's always exceptions to the rule. I'm giving you general information for a general price point. If you're in luxury, if you're in a really low price point, all these things could change what I'm saying. So I'm just kind of speaking in that $250,000 to $500,000 range. It's pretty competitive in the spring. And then of course, the part of the Twin Cities you're shopping in, some areas are going to be a lot more competitive than others. So for example, you want to buy a house in Coon Rapids, Maple Grove, Plymouth, we need to anticipate a lot of competition for the same properties. Again, depends on the price point. So what can we do to try to get a better price? Time the market a little bit better. For example, wait until after Memorial Day to start your house shopping. Yes, the downside will be there'll probably be a little less inventory to choose from. However, there'll be a far fewer buyers out there shopping, which will put you in a better situation for getting the house at asking price instead of going over, or not having to come up with an appraisal gap, or skipping my inspection to get the same property. You have to not, sorry, bad English. You have to not have a scarcity mindset. There will always be a house to buy, and shopping between June to January, or we'll just say Christmas time in general, end of December, is going to be a better fit for you if you're looking for a slightly better price. If you're trying to say, oh, next year will be better. I have been hearing people tell me next year is going to be better since I became a realtor. That's fear. That's thinking that you have the crystal ball and you know what's going to happen with house prices. Whether you're a professional in the lending field, the real estate field, we don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. There's plenty of YouTubers predicting a huge crash, and we can certainly believe them, but they don't know. Nobody knows, and you need to go with what's right for you and all the other things we've talked about. I'm not going to go over this page carefully, but there's a page in the book about the breakdown of your net worth and talking about some of these things. I also don't want to spend a lot of time on this page talking about the tax benefits, but there are tax benefits to being a homeowner that I haven't mentioned in the previous things. So we've made it to the end of my guide. I hope I've given you something new to think about that maybe wasn't on your radar before. If you're still not sure and you want to talk to somebody about this, I always welcome a phone call, a Zoom meeting, a coffee meeting. We can connect you to a loan officer if you're not sure about the financial aspects of your situation, which for most people is a very good place to start. There's no strings attached. You can reach out to these people and talk to them about your fears or your concerns about buying a house, and we can determine if it's right for you. It's just really not that big of a deal. There's so many people out there that'll say, I don't want to waste anybody's time. You can certainly stick with my YouTube videos or my guides, and I will supply that information to you too, but there is nothing hurting by talking to a real person for a few minutes and talking through some of these things. So my information is below. So I hope you gained something new out of this conversation today. I'm here for you if you think of anything real estate related in the Twin Cities. I am primarily a West Metro, kind of Northwest Metro realtor. I'm full-time, and I'm happy to be a resource to you, whether you're thinking about buying or selling, or like I said, just have questions about the real estate market. I'm happy to talk to you about these things. I try to make a new video every week. I will hopefully see you next Wednesday. Thanks so much.